was going to reel in some. What you said was nice.
Hi everybody. I love being here. I love seeing all of you. I want to thank you for being here. It's a very special night. I even got my classmates from Monrovia down here. Hello, can you hear me? Okay, now I'm going to talk a little bit differently, and I hope the things I say about my dad, my experiences of my dad, the early days, I hope they kind of jog your memory and bring back memories of your youth in our community, or in school or whatever, at the racetrack, you know, everybody went to the racetrack. My early childhood, now my dad was so esoteric. I mean, he was so he was with it as far as I'm concerned, more so than my parents are today. He was concerned about our education in the arts and culture. You know what he did? I was 4 years old, my sister was 7. He took us both to the Orpheum Theater in LA to see Ballet Russe perform Tchaikovsky's Swan Lake. I still have it in my mental picture. It's still there. I can still see those dancers. And not only that, we returned to the Orpheum when the movies came along, and he took us to see Laurel and Hardy classics. Funny, he loved Laurel and Hardy. And also Wolfman, Dracula, Frankenstein. My dad loved horror stories. You know, to this day, I am afraid of vampires and of wolves, especially those in sheep's clothing. Now, I did not talk as a child. They thought there was something wrong with me because I didn't talk until I was 4 years old. And the first words I spoke was not just words. It was a sentence, a whole sentence. It was a question. It was a request. And I said to them, "Will you give me piano lessons?" I was only 4 years old. You know, after that, they still think there was something wrong with me. Even my kids. But anyway, so piano lessons came along they said, of course. And at 4 years old, my sister and I were in piano recitals. So we were advanced quite a bit, and it was because of my dad. His influence on us was so wonderful. And the ballet lessons came along too. That was an owie experience. You know what I mean? It was rough, really rough. It was a Russian ballerina, and she was putting it to the task, you know, and it was something a 4-year-old couldn't handle. Now the Derby experience. My father was discovered, like my daughter mentioned, by George Wolfe. He was playing at the Clock Broiler. I think it was Long Beach. And the story is that George Wolfe came in one night and said to my dad, "Tony, I want you to come and play for me at the Derby." Well, he said, "Oh, yes, of course." And this was to be only the first of many changes to come for all of us. We moved from Alhambra to a redwood house, which had been moved from Pasadena to a lot directly across the street from the Derby. One rainy night, we came back after, some people don't know this, but the Derby burned down. And I think it was after George Wolfe died. And George Wolfe, I think he fell off the horse. He had gone into a diabetic coma and fell off the horse, Please Me, during a race at Santa Anita. And my dad just happened to be there. And I'll never forget the day, how gray and sad my dad was. He was just totally grief-stricken. My dad had become synonymous with the Derby, and everyone went there to listen to my dad play. Back in the day, they had this huge piano bar, which encouraged people, and people loved to go there and sing. And, "Hey, Tony, can you play me this song?" "Sure, just hum a few bars and I'll play it." And that's how it was. He had a repertoire of 4,000 songs. Notable visitors came there. One time Liberace, one time Senator Richard Nixon and Vice President Senator Nixon. Bob Hope and Dorothy L'Amour, who came to our house one night during an air raid, and to see my dad's baseball scrapbook, which is lost today. I don't know what happened to it, but it was wonderful. Senator Bob Kerr and his friends. Most people showed up after the races. They went to the Derby. That's the way life was in the 50s, right? He helped Mr. Nixon get elected as he campaigned all over Southern California with then Senator Nixon. He came and actually played the piano. We have pictures of that, which you will please feel free to look through my album. And Dad would accompany him on the accordion. Now remember, some of you, the war years. We had a victory garden with vegetables and berries. We also had an incinerator where we could burn our own trash. Remember that? Now every good Italian family had a fig tree, and we had a fig tree. I love the fig trees to this day. If I can find a fresh fig, I'm in heaven.
Trader Joe's has it.
Never stop hearing about the figs.
Now, during the war, the government put out a request to save your fat, save your grease, take it to your butcher, and that's what we did. I took the fat drippings from bacon and what have you to Mr. Berg, our butcher that was just around the corner. Wasn't very far to walk there, and they were going to make bombs with them. That's how they made bombs. The fat grease. That's what I believed anyway. I thought it was normal. You made bombs out of fat. Remember those early days when we read the newspapers? My parents subscribed to the Los Angeles Herald Examiner, and in the 40s, World War II, I remember the headlines, some of the banners. World War II, bombing of Pearl Harbor. FDR wins the presidency. Wendell Willkie dies. Remember Wendell Willkie? Then on August 14, 1945, Japan surrendered. Yeah, and that was my birthday. And of course, when FDR died, and Truman took over. Now there was a theater not far, just around the corner was Edwards Theater. Remember that? For a dime, we could watch the latest Roy Rogers and Dale Evans and Flash Gordon movies. And for just a dime, we could spend like the whole practically the whole morning and afternoon. It was a good deal. It was located across the street from Santa Anita racetrack, and next door to Edwards was Carpenter's Drive-In. They had bellhops, and they would wait on you in your car. And kids from high school loved to go there after school and just hang out. We couldn't do that until we got to high school. So my dad performed his accordion at War Bond Raleigh's, and they held them at the Edwards Theater. And it was to raise money for the troops. Now as they used to call it for the war effort. That was the phrase they coined, for the war effort. And on one such occasion, my father played his accordion and my 6-year-old brother sang Pistol Packing Mama. Every time. It was the greatest song. It was the greatest little gig my brother had going. And every time they sang it at Derby, they sang it at War Raleigh's, not just the Edwards, they sang it all over town, and they brought down the house every time they sang it. My little brother was this big brown-eyed, long lash. It was adorable. Now, when I was about 7 or 8, maybe some of you remember this, the sky suddenly came alive as we were going through a meteor belt. I mean, this only happens every 100 years. You know, I think we're getting ready to go through that again. I think so. It's coming up. Some of you will see it. My great-grandchildren will see it. My grandchildren probably will see it. It was wonderful. We stayed awake, even though it was a school night, we stayed awake just to see these meteorites shooting. It was every second. There was, I mean, the whole sky was ablaze with these meteorites. It was fabulous. Just wonderful. Haven't seen it since.
It's coming up.
Not yet.
It's coming up. We'll see it. Now, when we lived on 3rd Street, across from the Derby, it was not a through street. There was a huge oak tree in the middle of towards the end, and there was this construction and plumber at the end, and we had the greatest playground. This construction place had this huge antique train. Okay, it was a locomotive that they used to use, and you see them in cowboy movies. Well, they did finally, they sent it to, and it's still there in Eureka, California, in a museum. Well, anyway, we got to play on this train. We would get on board and have a ball. And behind it was this huge haystack, which was the piled kind, you know, where they bought the hay and they would store it in this big shed. We would play in this haystack. We had tunnels through there. It's a wonder we had angels watching over us. I mean, we really did. Some of the things, because one day I was out on that train track. There was a train track so the old Southern Pacific Railway, and it went across the wash, which was behind us. And now it's a flood control. I think they did away with the flood control. But then we had this big wash that got filled up quite often with heavy rains. And there was bamboo down there. Thank you. Anyway, I once jumped off that bridge because I had to.
I got a bridge story too. I got a bridge story too later.
These little boys were chasing me with their dogs and rocks, and I thought, I know how to stop this. I just went to the edge and jumped. I was about 7. One of my dad's piano students was Mickey Finn, who later became the owner, and he created Mickey Finn's in San Diego. And of course, he's famous.
Yes, San Diego.
Okay, so now the Lions Club. Now this was a fun event. You probably never heard of the donkey baseball game. Well, my dad instigated it when he was a Lions Club member. What they did, it was soon after he became a member, they had a fundraiser donkey baseball game. It was hilarious watching the donkeys make jackasses of the lions. The game was held at First Avenue Grade School, where I was going. And they held picnics at the Arboretum, which of course then looked like a jungle. It wasn't called the Arboretum. And Tarzan, Johnny Weissmuller, who I met at the racetrack, he was a wonderful giant of a man that stood there, 4 years old, looking up at him like he was a sequoia. Anyway, Johnny Weissmuller was Tarzan then, and his films were filmed there. Remember that big swamp-like pond? It was there, and he swam in it. And then the Lions Club held many parties and banquets for their members, and Christmas was held with Santa Claus and toys at the Old City Hall, which was at the corner of First and Huntington. They made my dad their official greeter because of his warm and outgoing personality. And my mom served as Leona president. Now, Dad was invited to provide music for many parties, weddings, civic functions, banquets, graduation breakfasts, and political campaigns. It was given that if someone needed entertainment, they called on Tony. He willingly gave of his time and talents, often without pay. Now, my father died on November 1, 1961, and his music lives on as a legacy to his family and to the people of Arcadia. My mother died June 15, 1974. It was her graduation day. They are interred together at the Calvary Cemetery Mausoleum in East Los Angeles. Thank you so much for